What up YouTube, this is your president, the presidential tourist, back with another video. I'm here in Haines City, Florida at Forest Hill Cemetery. Gonna do a little bit of walking, a little bit of driving around tour. Show you a little bit what the cemetery looks like. It's one of the more bigger, older cemeteries here in Haines City, Florida. Also, there's a grave here I want to really show you of a local Major League Baseball player legend, Tommy Leach. And Tommy Leach actually played in the first World Series of 1903, and his grave is just over there in the mausoleum. So I'm going to show you that too. And to show you around a little bit, I'm not going to do like a total walking tour of the whole thing because this place is big. I'll show you on my computer at home how big it is. There's a lot of graves, but just give you kind of an idea of what the place looks like. But okay, you know what that means. Let's get to it. Yeah. Might be a little bit of a wind sound on here. Gotta take care of that. I'm not exactly sure when this cemetery is founded. Sometimes that information is just tough to find. But you definitely find a lot of veterans' graves here, I know. And like I said, Mr. Leach's grave is right over there, along with the grave of his wife in that mausoleum building. I always like the name Grover. I think it's a cool name. As far as I know, Mr. Leach is the only one that's historically known for it, that's buried in the cemetery. But sometimes it's hard to tell if there's anyone else. There's not as much information about cemeteries as I wish there was. It's been a while since I've seen one of these versions of a veteran's grave that's like upright. A lot of them are the more flatter ones. A friend of mine, Chris, and I'll put his link below, he films a lot of veterans' graves. Mostly shows the ones that are on the ground. But I think that's really good that he does that because they deserve as much attention as possible. And a lot of them, they're not known. They're not known to history, unfortunately. And they sacrificed and did a lot for the country. So I'm glad that Chris does that. I'll put this link below. And he gets a lot of good comments from people. Very respectful comments for the different veterans that he shows. Look, this one was a baby. E.L. Jones, baby, November 8th, 1952. Like he shows a lot of these types for the veterans. Gotta be careful, it's kind of been raining on and off. It's starting to sprinkle a little bit, so I may have to jump in the car. There's a nice prayer. I meant to get here earlier, and of course earlier it wasn't raining. But it took me a lot longer. This one has some bushes behind there. Yeah, I'm going to get to the car for a little bit because it's starting to rain. And hopefully get back and do more of these. Because I want to show you as much as I can and get to Mr. Leach's grave. This is a nice setup here. A man shall cling to his wife, and two shall become one. I forever will. Love begins in a moment, grows in marriage and lasts for a lifetime. I forever do. It's nice. Oh, this one. This is Jeter. I very much doubt they're related to Derek Jeter. That's what I always think when I think of that name. Then I'm going to go over to where Mr. Leach's grave is and show you that first. And then give you more of an idea after that of, if I have to, I can film the rest of this just by driving in the car. But I like to just walk around and show you some of the different interesting graves. It all depends on how it goes with the rain. So I should have got out here earlier, but I unfortunately did not have the time or the opportunity. Okay, let's get over to Mr. Leach's grave. That's the main reason why I'm here. I've seen some gravestones, look like it's from the 30s and 40s, so this cemetery is at least that old. Alright, here is the mausoleum section where Mr. Leach is buried. He's either over there or over there. I'll show you this whole section, and you're actually going to see this part of this video twice. This is going to be in its own, just on about him, and then it's going to be in the cemetery video. Here's a little marker here, dedicated to members of the Florida National Guard. Forest Hill Cemetery, Haines City, Florida. And these oaks commemorate the original 13 states in the bicentennial year. Green Thumb Garden Club. Well, I don't know if it means those trees over there or others. Could be those. But I wonder if those trees that they're talking about is not even here anymore. Let's go and see. Here's a little information. I said he's going to either be, because I actually Google, you know, when you go on the Street View and Google, they actually drove through here, and you can actually see his grave and Google Street View. Okay, so it's going to be on the other side. First, before we go over there, speaking here, as I saw this, this is Cook's. Cook is the name. I mean, I think, does this open? Yeah, this opens. Well, I don't see any. I don't see anyone that's been buried in here. But maybe that's for. I see. Actually, no, they're all out here. Okay. So maybe this is supposed to be like a little. So I doubt they'd be able to put anyone in here because the bodies are right there. So maybe this is like a little place for you to, like a little chapel might be considered. I don't know. You tell me what you think. So normally they would have someone in there and I don't see them. I don't think they could. I bet you this whole section's for them. That's why it says Cook right there. But anyways, I don't want to be too much on that. Let's go over there on the other side and see where Mr. Leach is buried. I'll walk around this a little bit more. It might not be in the video with that I'm doing on Mr. Leach. It might be in the one where I do like the whole tour of the cemetery. Okay, here he is. Now this has been changed. See, ooh, that's loose too. Better not touch that. But that's been changed. I saw a photo I was taken several years ago of whatever. I guess you could say technically this is his headstone, and it was like a grayish white. And I think the words were black. So they redid all these for some reason. Maybe they were just deteriorating for some reason. I don't know. And then this is, I believe this is his wife. There's actually a really cool video, and I'll put the link below. I forget the name of the show, where he got basically asked questions from these contestants what he's famous for until they figure out what he's famous for. He was on there with another ball player. Very interesting. You actually get to hear him speak. That was filmed in 1960. And then, of course, he ended up passing in 1969. But you'll know much more about him from the section you already seen before you got to this. And I'm going to be talking about that which I guess you could say a game show. I'll be talking about that a little bit in that. I actually haven't filmed that part yet, so I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to say. I have pretty much known what I'm going to say, but there may be a few other things I'm going to include. But here is his final resting place. If you want to come and show your respects, if you just like to learn more, if you live in this area, more about the historical people that's buried around here. Now, he's not from Haines City. He's from, I think it was called French Creek, New York. Then they ended up settling down here. Ended becoming a businessman, but you'll all know all about that from that. Very interesting life, very interesting career. I think he was in the first World Series of 1903. He was one of the last players from that World Series to pass away. He might have been the last, or there might have been one more other than him. So he saw a lot, and he lived a really long time. Born in 1877, passed in 1969. And then his wife only lived about 2 more years after him. He would have been really cool, I think, to talk to. So he interacted with some of the earlier ball players, some the very first Hall of Famers. So he must have had some really interesting stories. I have to see if there's any more interviews with him. I bet there is, and it would be really cool to learn more about his insight into early baseball, because baseball then was very different from baseball now. The way the ball was made, the size of the field, you know, everything. Just a lot of it, so much has changed. But yeah, it's in, and this is almost the very middle of the cemetery. Well, not quite. It goes a bit more farther down there, I believe, but it's close, and it's right next to Haines City High School. So I'm glad he was in something like this and not regular grave, because that would have been much harder to find. Would have been a lot of walking around. But if you want to, like I said, you want to come and show your respects, this is where he is. Look for crypt number 53, and then his wife is buried at number 54. Yeah, but there he is. But if you have any more comments or questions about him, let me know. I'm actually a Cleveland Indians fan, which I'm sure he would have found kind of sacrilegious. But that's just how it is. But here it is. I'm glad I finally got here. Been meaning to want to film this video forever, and this took me a while to get here, but I'm glad I did. But yeah, like I said, any comments or questions, I'll try to answer. Like I said, I'll put the link below for that game show that he was on, and some other links about his information, about his life. There, he also has a Wikipedia page, and yeah, all right, that's it. I want to show over here. And I bet you these are people who was cremated. So basically they just have smaller crypts, obviously. And then I wanted to look at, let's see where I saw it on camera. Well, I gotta go inside there too. There was one bigger grave over here. You can tell which ones are older because they're a lot more harder to read. I'm holding the camera a little down because it's starting to sprinkle a little bit. Yeah, this one was a Reverend Samuel Chase Hodgman. He was born in 1831, died in 1900. So this cemetery could be that far back. Yeah, that's the oldest one I've seen. Mother Julia Norris. The mitzvah? I don't see a year. This had to have been a more prominent person because so far this is the biggest one here. I might have to cut this short. It's starting to sprinkle a little bit more than I like. I can tell a more prominent person was just marked out. I don't see any year unless there's something on the other side that's behind this bush. I don't see anything. Yeah, I might have to cut this short a little bit sooner than I planned because I can't get this camera too wet. And I cannot replace it, but like I said, this cemetery is pretty big. You go all the way back there. It happens to be right next to a high school. But I don't really have to go through all of this because would make this video really, really long. And the main purpose of this is basically just to give you kind of an idea of what the cemetery looks like. Let me go over here. Yeah, let me know if you think that's supposed to be like almost like a little chapel for them, or maybe eventually they plan to put some members of the Cook family in there as well. It doesn't look like there's really enough room, but I mean, I don't know. That's interesting. Like I said, I don't see, I'm assuming you can go in here, but this is not locked. Like I said, I don't see any markings. I'm not going to go in there just in case. But I want to show you the other side a little bit more. I think this might be why they replaced some of these. Look, this one looks like it's coming away a little bit. I don't want to touch it because I don't want it to fall out. Okay, this must have been for some cremated remains, some older ones. This definitely looks older than the other one. This was probably more originally here when this cemetery first started, close to it. Yeah, look, 1927, 1969. Is my father's house, our many mansions. Yeah, it's getting dark, so I have to be quick. So I think it's going to start raining here. I'm going to cut this short. I'm going to go. Like I said, I can't let this camera get wet. But there's much more to the cemetery. And like I said, it's pretty big. I just want to give a quick little look at it for you all. Any comments, questions, let me know. Thank you for watching. Bye, everybody. Bye. Alright, just going to pan around one more time before I jump in the car. Like I said, this is older, interesting cemetery. I'm not exactly sure of the year. Sometimes you can't go by the graves, but sometimes someone will pass and they might not get buried till years after, or maybe they get reburied years after, and then it might not be the actual age of the cemetery. And sometimes it's hard to find, well, a lot of times it's hard to find exactly when a cemetery was founded. Okay, I'm going to get in the car because rain's coming. Alright, we're just going to drive around a little bit. I think I can. I just don't dare walk around anymore because it's when the rain comes, it's going to be coming a lot. Like I said, Google, when they did the street view, they drove around in here. So that's how I knew exactly where Mr. Leach's grave was. Where that was, that obelisk, where I knew where that was. So it must have been a very prominent person to be like that. I don't see any Civil War markers, so this isn't back to the 1800s. I said most of the oldest ones I've seen looked maybe 1930s, 1940s. So I don't think it was much older than that. I think it's 1900. Either he was already there and then the cemetery was built around him, or he was reburied there after. Oh look, I think that might have been a dog burial, maybe, or that person was a dog person. They had a little dog statue thing on there. This is probably for the Parks and Recs, probably to take care of the cemetery, I bet. And then I saw from Google Maps and went all the way over here too. Yeah, look at that. So it's a lot bigger than you think, isn't it? Yeah, everyone. I film these cemeteries, I always try to be as respectful as possible. I know a lot of people are interested in this stuff and the history of it. And I bet you this is all land that they can expand to. I'm willing to bet. Yep, the rain's coming. And like I said, this cemetery is a lot bigger than even what I thought, what I seen from the satellite. Usually rain here in Florida passes pretty quickly. Okay. I'm probably going to quit here, guys, because we're going to get out of here safely and get going on to our next place. There's some big old pipes. Alright, I'm going to roll my window up because I don't want this camera to get wet, but this is not quite as much of a tour as I want it to be, but close enough. It's going to have to be. And I think we can go around here. Alright everyone, bye. I was on my way out. I noticed at the back of this tombstone they really like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Look at that. Turtle power. I bet you that was a kid. Little Bob and a little child shall lead them. I think it says in the bottom. Yeah, right there. Look at that. Isn't that? That's pretty cool. Alright, just wanted to show you the cemetery quickly. Here is the high school right next door to it, right there. But this is the cemetery. I only, this is where I came in right there. When I did my intro, it was right across the street from this entrance right here. I stood right there and I drove in. Here's the mausoleum section where Tommy Leach and his wife is not buried but interred, I think is the proper word. I only got to do a little bit, show you kind of like this area a little bit before the rain came. I knew it was coming, and yeah, it came down hard. And I found out some later information. There's actually a grave there for the 1920s. I guess this cemetery was privately taken care of by a funeral home for a while before the city, Haines City, took over it in the 1970s. But there is some older graves there, and the oldest one supposedly from the 1920s. I did not see that. The older section of the cemetery, let's see, I read up where it was. I think it did say by Grace Avenue, I think. So it might have been back here. We drove back here a little bit, and I did a little bit there. But I didn't nearly get as much done as I wanted to. It's just unfortunately, I knew the rain was coming, and it came a little bit quick after I did that last part there when I got in the car. So I wasn't able to show you as much as I wanted to, unfortunately. But it's big. It looks like there's graves all the way over here and everything. So yeah, this is a pretty big cemetery. And I don't know how much land here that they can expand into. I'm not sure if this is their land here, this section right here too, or what. I don't see any graves from there. But it almost looks like there's like a path here. I don't know. See there? I don't know. But yeah. So some of it is a bit older. So I'm not exactly sure if you consider it founding when this oh shoot, it's kind of late. I should have did this when I was more rested, but when the funeral home ran it, or when the city took over, probably when the funeral home ran it. So, but I'm not exactly sure the exact year. It's hard to find these things on some of these cemeteries sometimes, unless it's like a really famous one like Arlington or something. Sometimes finding stuff online for when a cemetery started is really hard. But that's some of the information I got about it. If you search on Google, you can find some of that. But I just wanted to show quickly how big this is. Alright, if you have any questions or comments, let me know. I'll tack this at the end of my video.